Welcome back to another filler pod.
Filler pod.
Number, I don't know. Number, do you know?
6,
Number 6,
8, maybe. I don't know.
7. We'll put it here. Today we're gonna talk about something very interesting that
Very
a lot
big.
of people very big, and it's about 4 companies.
4 companies.
We both worked at big 4 companies.
Yeah.
You worked at Deloitte. I worked at KPMG. So
We both worked for exactly 2 years, no?
for 2 years and a half, I worked for 2 years and a half. You worked for 2 years. But first, I wanted to talk about how we got to our respective big 4s and that process. And I can start.
Mhm.
For me, as many of you guys know, I did accounting as an undergrad. And naturally, for accounting, they push you a lot towards the big 4. All the accountants go to big 4s. But I didn't want to do accounting for my career. I didn't want to do audit. I tried it out. I didn't like it. And the natural next step was consulting.
Did the Big Fours recruit heavily at BC?
Yes,
Boston
heavily,
College, where
heavily,
you went to
heavily.
school.
And what I wanted to do instead of accounting was consulting. And naturally, I found a person, a connection that guided me towards M&A consulting. And that's what I ended up doing.
You had done audit internships for 2 years, and you realized that you didn't want to do that for.
I didn't want to do
when you
audit.
Graduated.
And I applied to all 3 of the 4 big 4s. I didn't apply to Deloitte. And I only got into KPMG, which is crazy. And that's how I ended up in the big 4.
I also applied to 3 of the 4 Big Fours, and I also only got into
To
one
Deloitte.
of them, which was Deloitte. So same thing with me. I realized that I wanted to do consulting. I'd say that I didn't have the technicals that you had. I think like accounting, you can do everything in finance, but not the other way.
Mhm.
And also, since you were CPA track, that opened a lot of doors. So I knew I wanted to do consulting. The Big Fours recruit heavily at UF, where I was going to school. So I ended up talking, actually for an internship, my first year at UF with one of them. I flew out, interviewed, didn't get it. And then for that same company, I ended up interviewing again, and I also didn't get it.
Oh my God.
But I interviewed with 2 other Big Fours because it was 3 of them, and ended up getting the job at Deloitte, where I
Nice.
started. My consulting that I did, because mine was more like advisory, which the differentiation is like very close to each other, was focused on technology, specifically Sarbanes-Oxley Act auditing, which I hated. Not the company, not anything really job related. It was just like I've never liked technology, and that's what I was doing. So that's one of the reasons why I left.
And to your point about the not having the technicals, the good thing about the big 4 that I found out is that out of undergrad, the interviews are not really that technical.
No.
They're pretty. Mine was 2 rounds. I think I interviewed like 3 times total, and I
Right.
got the job. I don't know you.
I did a hire review, and then I did the in-person interview, and then the in-person interview is usually 3 to 4 people, and then some of them are going to be like behaviorals, usually like the managing director, the interviews to see if you're like a good fit, and then the other ones are going to be like a case. The case are not crazy. I remember I read. Do you ever read Case in Point?
I did, but for KPMG, I didn't have a case. Thankfully.
Okay, so I read the first like 35 pages in Case in Point, and it helped a lot.
That's crazy.
But the Case in Point, it's made for, I'd say, like the next step, which is the big
top
Boston
3.
Consulting and,
Yeah.
and McKinsey. And I'd say, like, the Big Fours do really good consulting, but it's like a little different. And I'd say that like the interviews at least are not as rigorous.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely for the big 4, I agree with you. The interviews are not that rigorous.
Right.
And once you got in, Falc, let's talk about our day-to-days. Because since we both did different things, our day-to-day was completely different. For me, I've told you many times, and I've said it in the channel, my day-to-day was 95% PowerPoint. It was all based on the client. We would join a touch point, which is a meeting with the internal KPMG team every morning. I would get my task for the day.
80% of those meetings are not necessary. Not
Right.
80. No, I wasn't 80. Let's say
Like-
50.
Like
I don't think
two
you
out of the week.
I don't think you need a touch point every single morning.
No, every single morning.
And
No.
nothing pisses me off more than when you get to the meeting, nothing's happening, and then the person goes, "Well, I'll give you guys back 25 minutes."
Yeah.
And you're like,
What happened with me is that we would start talking about my director's like family, like kids, and like my like personal life, and we would like start chatting, and then 25 minutes would go by, and they're like, "All right, Alejandro, you have to do this. Katsu, you have to do this. That person, you have to do that," and that's it.
Yeah.
Like it could be an email, but obviously, I guess in this work from home environment, it's like a way to like stay connected with your team and all that. But yeah, it was like a touch point in the morning, do a PowerPoint for another meeting with the client during the day, and then at night another touch point sometimes at night and in the afternoon.
Mhm.
So we could like make sure we got everything done and what we had to do for the rest of the week.
and you wouldn't meet that much with the client.
I would in between. Like all the PowerPoints I did were for the client. So if I had a meeting with a client, a touch point with the client, we would have to prepare a presentation for that touch point with the client. And that would normally go to me, which I was the lower ranked person in my team. And then my senior would review it, and then my director would approve it, and my director would present it, or my senior would present it.
My days were pretty similar. I had a lot of walkthroughs because the type of work I did, I say it was like a little shorter engagements, as they're called, so shorter projects. So we had a lot of walkthroughs with the clients, and then a lot of documenting and making sure that we put all the information that we talk with the clients together, and then meetings here and there. That was my biggest shift. And now that you're gonna work like a fully professional job this summer when you do your internship, I don't know about the company that you're gonna work at, but one of the things that impacted me the most when I started working somewhere else that wasn't the Big Four was the few meetings I had in comparison with the Big Four.
Okay.
Like I don't have meetings now.
Nice.
Maybe 2 to 3 meetings a week. At the Big Four, I will have meetings all day, and it's not mean, especially that as you move up, you have to start having meetings from 9 to 5 nonstop.
Yeah.
And then you do your real work after 5 p.m.
Yeah. If you had a lot of meetings during the day, maybe you had to push your work, like you had all those walkthroughs that they show you processes. Maybe you had to push your work to after the day ended at 5. Did that impact your work-life balance?
No, because you do find time during the meetings.
Okay.
Maybe occasionally during the meetings, and also like between meetings.
Yeah.
And also if you start a little earlier. Like I have people that will start at like 9:30, 10 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
and they will work like super late. So I guess you kind of choose. It's like either you want to work earlier, you want to work later. I like going outside and enjoying the day, so I'd rather just work early.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people that are like 9 hours. So the occasion, I remember one time I was working at like 6 p.m., maybe 7, and I saw that this is probably my second month, and I saw that my associate was also working, and I pinged her, and she replied, "It's illegal to ping people after 5 p.m."
Nice.
Which she was right about. Like
nice.
that.
That's awesome though.
Yeah.
You love that.
So yeah, there's people that tend to work a little.
So how much would you work per week on average? Would you say?
I always say that I work a little more than the average person, but I didn't work crazy hours. So every single week, my expectation was that I had to bill 45 hours.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So when you take 45 hours means that you're working 9 hours every single day. So the 9 to 5 doesn't exist. 9 to 5 is 8 hours. And if you take 1 hour for lunch, it's 7.
Yeah.
So, I will start the day at like 8 and I will finish at like 6. And I would usually like work through lunch or something like that.
Yeah.
45. When busy season came, I think I worked like upwards around like 55 to 60.
Okay.
And that would be like 2 months.
Okay.
There was much more of a culture of working the weekends during the busy seasons. And also, if you wanted to work weekends, a lot of people did. You didn't have to, but there was like more of that consistency of people doing that. I think now my job is completely different because I work in financial markets. In financial markets, it's literally the week. Like in the weekends, you can't do anything because it's closed unless you want to get ahead on something. So yeah, what about you?
Mine was, it depended. I made a video about this. I had short-term and long-term projects. The long-term projects, it was mostly meetings, and it was a 9 to 5. Once you ended the day of meetings, if you didn't have to prepare anything for the next morning, you were done, basically. And we normally, like everything we had to prepare, we would put in the afternoon so we could work on it in the morning. So those would be the long-term projects. I would probably work like 40, 45 hours.
Mm-hmm.
For the short-term projects, they would be like 3-4 weeks. They would be more sprints. But even then, I don't think I would work more than 50, 55 hours a week.
You were also from home majority of the time, so that saved a lot of time.
That saves a lot of time. Yeah, no commute, no like
wasting time in the
office, talking to people, getting lunch with people.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, my no weekends. My team especially was very big on no weekends. It also depends on the team because the Big Four is massive. But honestly, I think the Big Four, unless you do like audit and you on busy season, it gets really busy, even busier than your busy season. I think.
Right.
I think the Big Four has pretty good life balance, work life.
I've seen audit is a little worse. Like I've seen audit and tax are usually the ones that are worse. Like I remember when we started going to the client, you work the team that I work with, we were right next to the audit people, and we would leave the office and the audit people will still be there, and then we'll get there the next day and they will be there from like earlier than us because audit is a little stronger, which is kind of the bad part because the way that I ranked it when I did my video was the way that I saw it, at least at Deloitte, was that it's the ranking of how they get paid is audit and advice, tax and audit get kind of paid the same.
Yeah.
And then it's advisory gets paid a little more.
Yeah.
And then consulting gets paid the most.
Yeah. And that's interesting to me because I think auditing, I don't know about tax, but I think auditing are the people that work the most.
In audit and tax, you need the CPA. Like that's you also have like a barrier of entry that is much higher than the barrier of entry for advisory.
Yeah. That's super interesting. But yeah, I always wondered that. And in Deloitte, how did you feel? Now you do wealth management, you do something completely different. How did you feel at Deloitte prepared you to do for your next step in your career?
One of the biggest things that I liked about Deloitte, and I think it probably applies for all the big fours or all big international corporations, is the orientation was pretty good because they taught me a lot of things that maybe I knew from school because I had classes on that, but like day-to-day office stuff that you need to know, like how to present, like how you make a good presentation in PowerPoint, like how you write the proper email. That was pretty good. And I also had it during COVID. That was all in Zoom. When you do in the real, when you do it when it's non-COVID times, you usually go to one of the campuses that now the big fours all have. Yeah. So Deloitte has like a university that is in Houston. KPMG has one in Orlando. I don't know about the other two. So that helped. And then also, since it's such a big company, like everything's structured. Like everything has a plan. Everything has like a structure that you kind of adhere to. And that helped a lot because it created a good foundation when I went somewhere like I work now, where you don't have that much structure because it's a smaller team, it's not as international and things like that.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think one, it's just get like a school for.
It's a school.
It's a school to start working where they don't have any, or they have very little expectations. They know you don't know how to write an email. They know you don't know how to work the drive. They don't know you don't know how to do anything. So they grab your hand and they really go step by step, like teaching you how to talk to a client, how to do everything. So it's a school. They helped with, in my case, with the CPA. They paid for all the courses. They gave me time.
How much was the bonus when you passed?
5,000. It was a 5,000 bonus. Mm-hmm. Not crazy, but it's nice. Right. The Becker course was like $2,000, and then they pay for the exam fee. They pay for everything. And the third thing, which I think is pretty awesome, is that they all know like we just want to use it as a school, or not everyone, but most people use it as a school and then leave to do something else. So when I wanted to do my MBA, everyone I talked to, like you would normally think like, oh, he's gonna do an MBA, he's leaving, what a dick.
Right.
But everyone I talked to was super excited. They want you to succeed and to be the best like version of yourself, even if that means leaving. Right. And in their eyes, what my director told me is that at the end I might turn into a client, so they're interested in keeping that relationship like going well. So I think my third point would be that they really focus on like developing you and supporting you whatever you want to do, and that really helps for my MBA process.
And it's a model that's designed like that. It's a model that's designed that a lot of people start, and it kind of creates like a filter, and less people get promoted until like you see, the managing directors, you see ages like all over the place because there's so few littles that actually make it through the firm. Yeah. And I feel like we're the last generation that is still going to see people like you probably saw in KPMG and I saw Deloitte that were like managing directors that have been working there for 20 years.
Yeah, for
that's
sure.
Insane. Like that's insane. That doesn't happen. One thing that I did like a lot about Deloitte, and once again, it's also like working for a big corporation, is if you had, let's call it beef with someone, you can just be like, I just have to deal with this for 2 more months, and then I'm going to work for a different project.
Right.
That was huge.
Yeah, and that's something I want to talk for my lessons learned is what did you learn with like working at Deloitte, and that's one of the things that I think we both share is that the good thing is that you can like our recommendation for you guys is that you can never go wrong going to a big four because you can learn about many different things. You can try many different projects. Like if you don't like a project, you can switch after 2 months. If you don't like a person, you can switch after 2 months after the project's over. If you want to move internally from M&A consulting to risk tech advisory, you can do that, or vice versa. So you have a lot of options early in your career to do whatever you want, whatever you like.
Once they hire you, you want to do as much as possible to keep you in.
Yeah, exactly.
If that's like changing, they'll also joke around that like there's a lot of boomerangs, like people that left the firm and then came back. Yeah, I saw a few of those. So yeah, that's one of the biggest is they want to keep you as much as possible. My biggest takeaway is I did what I did for 2 years, and again, I didn't like it, not because of the firm, not because of the people, because both were great, not because of the pay, that was also good too, just because of what I did, I didn't like. But if I will go back in time, I will 100% do it again.
Yeah, of course, because you learned what you didn't like doing.
And the other thing is you're working for literally the biggest companies in the world. So you get exposure to super cool deals. Yeah. Like I got exposure to some companies that are not super famous and then other companies that are like extremely famous. And you get the opportunity of working super, super deep, like into it and getting to know like the day-to-day. Yeah. That's really nice. Yeah. Different than some other jobs. Like when I was going out of college, I realized that I wanted to do something where what I did was providing the service for companies. I had a job that was corporate finance, and even though you have really cool jobs in corporate finance, I didn't like the idea of working for a company. I wanted to work for a company whose clients were other companies. That way you saw something different every time.
Yeah, for a professional services company.
For a professional services company. And what happened with me when I realized there was an issue was that I tried something within my segment, and then I'm like, all right, let me switch to this. Maybe I'll find this more interesting, and I couldn't find it.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized
I have to do
I
something
wanted to
different.
switch. My biggest, and I'm kind of rambling here, but my biggest thing was my days wouldn't go by quick.
Yeah.
That was my biggest issue.
Yeah. You would look at the clock.
I will look at the clock, and I had literally 1 or 2 days throughout my entire 2 years where my time just went by quick.
Yeah.
And it was most of the times because we were crunch time and we had to deliver something by a certain day.
Yeah.
Now that's the thing that I look for the job that I had now, and I kind of have it, which is my days go back every single quick, unless you went out the night before and you're low on sleep, because those days don't
And then it goes go by super slow.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that second point is very, very important. Is that you work with high level individuals and that teaches you a lot, because my third point was that it's a big resume boost, because right now, I went through recruiting for next summer and I got a really good job in an investment bank. And in the interview, when I told them that I worked at KPMG and they started asking questions, they actually told me that they had worked on big deals with KPMG.
Of course.
And thankfully, they had a good experience out of it. And everyone that saw my resume, like in coffee chats and everything,
Everyone knows who KPMG is.
Right. Everyone needs that they know that I have that basic experience of, I know how to write an email, I know how to handle a meeting, how to do the basic things well, because the Big Four teaches you that. And so it's a good stamp on your resume. That comes with my 4th point, which is the first negative point we have here, which is that the Big Four does not pay well. They're well known for not paying well compared to other consulting firms. I don't know about auditing, how that works, but generally the big 3 like BCG, Bain, and McKinsey, and the bottom companies pay a lot more.
But it's different because in BCG and all those companies, you're going to work a little more, and you're going to be doing a little different time. I think it's kind of like I don't know what shape it is, but you start a little higher than the average, then you go low, and as you start making towards the end, you start going pretty high. That's what I usually say.
Graph.
Yeah. So I started, and then the first year you get the first year you get a small bump, and then the second year you get like a decent one, and then like a bigger one, and then after that it kind of like goes down a little bit.
It stagnates.
Stagnates as far as how much you increase every.
But something my dad, I'm gonna bring my dad into this, he always said is that, because when I told him like, oh, like all my friends in other accounting and other consulting firms are making so much more money that outside of the Big Four, and he would always tell me, which he was right at the end, focus about getting the experience, learning,
100%.
And the money will come later. Just focus on doing a good job. That's a great company, big company, everyone knows. And he ended up being right. I mean, at the end, it helped me get the job.
And between the Big Fours, they're all pretty similar.
Yeah.
Like if you find one job, like if you have like an audit staff job in Boston for one Big Four, the audit staff in Boston for the other Big Four is gonna pay tops $3,000 difference.
Yeah, it's gonna be very similar.
And then when you see the second tier, the middle market firms, which are like the BDOs, the RSMs, and this other big accounting firms that are not the Big Four, those usually pay better.
They pay better
because they're compensated for the fact that it's not such a well-known name.
Such a resume boost.
Right.
But overall, I think final takeaways now is, like you said, if I could do it all over again, I would do it exactly the same, because it was a great learning experience.
Maybe, like, would I go, when I decided to leave Deloitte, I wasn't leaving the firm, I was leaving my job and my path. And I also left it because I realized that none of the things that I wanted to do, none of the positions that were at Deloitte were ones that I was interested in doing, going for the long term.
If Deloitte had a wealth management side of the business,
I
maybe
would
you
have
would
tried
try
it,
it.
yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, that's something that we definitely have both had great experiences, and it was a great school, and hopefully when we're billionaires, it's
we can buy them.
Well, we can buy them. Subscribe. Peace.